give feed as to what exactly is going on over there. It's really, really sad. I did speak with her yesterday, and she had the same, narration about work being put on hold when the body of the developer was found, which, of course, entirely wrong, because every single person who is missing and those family members who are there would continue, and of course would continue to hope that they can still find, their family members alive. But it's
really sad.
We've repeatedly spoken about time, and so every 10 minutes, 15 minutes that work, stops, you're putting that person's life even at more risk. So it's really heartbreaking. But the breaking news is that Femi Oshibona's body has been found. I saw, all over social media yesterday, people posting, rest in peace, good night, and and whatnot. The state governor has also declared a 3-day mourning, with regards to people who have died in that disaster. Hopefully, they're able to finish as quickly as possible, to conclude search and rescue, and if possible, still save a life that might still be hanging by a thread in there.
The question now would be, is there a possibility that you still have people who would survive? Not to say that, that bags and baggages,
chance, but I think there is.
Bags and baggages should be packed and moved away. But, I mean, it's really, really sad because we've been seeing reports and all of the videos coming from that particular scene, people complaining of the pattern, the mode of operation,
yes,
the speed at which they're working. And if that report is something to go by, it's really, really bad that we do not pay attention to the lives of the people. Over time, you see that if you have a situation where 10 was killed, we try to downplay the figures. It doesn't matter, even if it's one life actually matters. It doesn't matter if it's one person that died, it's a lot. And absolutely, you never can tell, the pain that a lot of persons will be. For me, it's the fact that we live in a society where things are actually not very, things are not very smooth. You want to talk about the employment rate and all of that. And you have a lot of these persons who are trying to make something out of their life. People actually going out every morning to earn a living. And this is what happened because of what? Someone actually, failed at their job, or someone became very greedy, and someone is ignorant, just as we spoke with our guest yesterday. It's really, really sad. I do feel, goosebumps at this point in time.
Some of the things that we'll be talking about this morning. But let's get you to watch this. We have a quick report to share with you, and we'll be back after this. What is this?
I'm not touching you.
Information there.
And just a clip of the drama that, of course, played out yesterday after the body of the developer, Femi Oshibona, was found yesterday. Our reporter said that after work stopped, a few family members got agitated because, they're asking why is search and rescue operation, currently on hold, after his body was found. There's still a chance of finding somebody alive. There's still a chance of at least maybe a very, very slim chance of rescuing someone who might still be alive in that rubble. But sadly, we live in a country where, and I've been saying this right from the day that this happened, how nobody really will be asked these questions, and nobody would take responsibility for the failures at many levels with this. The failure of search and rescue to have begun 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes after this incident happened. The failure of whoever it is that led to the it's taken for these little glitches here and there, and there's zero respect and value for that life. And it hurts to see how insensitive,
Very insensitive.
people are when they are not really affected, when it's not really their family member, or it's not really, anything that concerns them directly. It's a high level of insensitivity.
And the fact that there's almost also a display of might. You want to see, we want to begin to flex muscle, and at every point in time, we want to begin to show who is powerful and who is most important. So it's really, really sad. Just like I mentioned yesterday, words on the street are already saying, it's a big boy. There are big boys involved in all of this, so it would definitely be covered up. Nothing will happen. And I'm hoping that, the government would understand that the people already can actually predict what's going to happen. And that narrative should never, never come to pass.
Well, I don't want to say, because I'm not necessarily going to say that nothing will happen. The governor has set up a committee to look into this, even if there's people who criticize it and say this is really it should be a criminal investigation, not for any committee to be set up. Nobody needs a panel to be set up to look into this. It's a criminal investigation, and that's what it should be. It should be handled by the police. But like I said to you yesterday, when we get to that stage, we will talk about whether people would be held responsible for this. I'm just saying that it hurts me that on the different levels of failure, around all of this that is playing out, we don't live in a society where people can see that they are failing in this tiny regard. In this, other regard here, you are failing. And because there would be almost no questions asked, on that level. NEMA, LASEMA, the FRSC, the Nigerian Army, every single person who's involved in the search and rescue, there's different tiny little levels of failings or failure that you can spot there. I saw a woman yesterday who was crying and saying that the method with which they are carrying out the search and rescue it doesn't look good enough, and she was speaking Yoruba. I couldn't understand, but she was saying that they weren't doing it properly, that the way that they were doing it, you could even hurt more people who are under the on that rubble. And I said it before. I remember that I asked the person we interviewed on Tuesday this same question. What do you see in this search and rescue that you think is completely inadequate? Are they doing it properly? Is this the right way to do it? And his response was, well, the Lagos State government is doing their best, and so let's
because
give them,
they don't have,
encourage them. They don't have the equipment, so let's do with what we have. But that should never be the case. And we should not go home and celebrate and say, okay, well, they've given their best.
To shock you now is that this would happen in future. I am not a prophet of doom. I'm just saying that this will happen. And the truth is, we will not, if you look at what's going to happen in the nearest future, it's not because, one is actually trying to predict, this is really going to happen, or someone is being very negative. Yeah, the point is it's going to happen. And what lessons have we learned? Nothing. So you're going to see the same old. We're going back in the same, pattern. Because at the end of the day, one is expected that with all of the experiences that we have had over time, it's not the first, it's not the second, and it will not be the last. What have we learned from it? What measures are we putting up to say, okay, we need to improve on all of this, we need to improve? Don't we know that this is a city that's really congested and traffic is a major issue? I am not here seated, trying to say, oh yeah, they have done something, but that's not enough. We're expected more. I mean, looking at the toll, the figures, quite really, really sad.
Anyway, I think we're going to wrap up Plus Trend, Top Trending this morning, not Plus Trending. And of course, Off the Press comes up next with Jide Johnson. He's going to be looking at the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning and getting to share his thoughts with us. We'll be back after this short break.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development and ship registration.
Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. We'll take you through the front pages of the national dailies and bring you up to speed with what's making the rounds. And we have G.D. Johnson on standby who will join the conversation. I'd like to start off with the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. And let's look at the bold caption. On the Daily Independent, fear envelopes Anambra as Guba poll holds tomorrow. That's the bold caption, and you can actually tell that this will be dominating all of the headlines. Secure our people. Southeast governors tell security agencies. Don't panic over influx of buses full of passengers. That's what government is saying. INEC begins distribution of sensitive materials. All of this you find on the front page of the Daily Independent. Invasion of justice Orderly's residents, NBA frowns and rejects federal government's denial, insists on unmasking and prosecution of those who directed the raid. All of that on page 4. You also find the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, inaugurates tribunal to probe Ikoyi building collapse. Declares 3 days mourning and flags to fly at half-mast. Body of Focus Homes MD recovered. That's also on page 2. And still looking at the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper, another bold caption here says, NAS tackles Amechi over $1.3 billion Kanu Maradi rail projects. Lawmakers insist federal government marginalizing Southeast and South-South. All of that you also find on the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. And Southeast insecurity no longer making of IPOB. That's what regions governors quoted to say. The governors are saying, oh yes, it's not just IPOB, but some element are already taking advantage of it and tagging IPOB for all of the mayhem they're causing. Uni Abuja lecturers boycott classes over abducted colleagues. And ASU gives 48 hours to security agencies to rescue abductees. That's on page 7. IPOB cancels 1 week sit-at-home order. That's also on page 7. Debt cancellation not channeled appropriately. That's what the president is quoted to say. And just before we move away, weak obsolete equipment hampering power transmission. The minister is also saying that on page 2 of the Daily Independent newspaper. If you pick up a copy, I'm sure you get all of the details.
On the Nation newspapers, body of collapsed Lagos building owner retrieved. Death toll rises to 33. NBC warns against scary broadcast, and INEC begins distribution of sensitive materials. APC orders warring or your groups to reconcile. And also 360,000 download eNaira's Speed Wallet app. A few others this morning. 5G operators reject $1.97 million spectrum fee. Those are the big ones on the Nation newspapers this morning.
All right, away from the Nation newspaper, let's check out the Leadership newspaper. And the bold caption reads, Finance Ministry budgets 130.5 billion naira for special interventions in 2022. That's a bold caption, quite different from what you have on other papers. You also have, as Workers Ministry allocates 2.3 billion naira for construction of classrooms, CSOs raise concern over votes for non-specific projects and infrastructure. That's also the rider underneath the bold caption. Uni Abuja attack. We're traumatized, can't go to class. That's what ASU is saying. Anambra poll, please ban vehicular movement. IPOP cancelled sit-at-home order. That's also on page 4. And technocrats to shut down labs. Research Center over 22 billion naira end allowance at a time where COVID-19 is a problem globally and also Nigeria. Body of Lagos collapse building owner Femi Oshibano recovered. That's also on page 1 of the Leadership. That's so much we can take on the Leadership newspaper this morning.
And now to the Daily Trust. I regret giving birth to Shakal, says his mother. He was stubborn, district head says. Also on the Daily Trust, OPEC raises Nigeria's oil production bar to 1.666 million barrels per day. And also, Ikoyi building collapse, owner's body recovered 3 days after. MTN Group to sell 575 million shares to Nigerian investors. COVID-19, PSC, Health Ministry clash over 1.2 billion naira treatment fund. And Nigerians trapped in net of bad governance and insecurity, says Atiku Abubakar. Anambra governorship, IPOB backtracks, asks residents to vote, council's sit-at-home order. Good morning, Ginny Johnson. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning and good morning to our viewers all over the world.
All right. I want us to start with the Anambra elections and the IPOB's sit-at-home. I'm mentioning this because it's not the first time that this has happened. Last time that there were general elections in Anambra, the IPOB had the same approach with which they declare sit-at-home, declare no elections, say no to voting and whatnot. And then 48 hours to the election, they then give a go-ahead for people to vote. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I've seen people put out the narrative that this seems to be done on purpose to dissuade people from getting registered for the election in the first place, getting their PVCs and whatnot. And then eventually, they now say, okay, go ahead and vote when they already know 48 hours to the election that nobody, would be registered to vote or nobody would be interested in the electoral process. So let me get your view on this story that says IPOB cancels sit-at-home.
That's voter suppression. That's voter suppression strategy. And it's not helping people in Anambra State. If you check the voters turnout for the last election in 2017, it was just 22% of the registered voters. So 22% people actually determined who was the governor of Anambra State. And in a situation whereby if a student should score 22%, are you going to grade the student as being successful, as being a failure? And that's why we have had leadership failure in Nigeria, because the voters turnout is not always impressive. And that's not the intention and the idea behind those that came up with representative democracy. At least you expect to get about 50-60% threshold in terms of voters turnout. And in that process, like you pointed out, it might be to help one political party or the other, and in the process you dissuade people from going out to vote, coupled with the fact that we have already stoked fear in the minds of the people. And our election that is also characterized by a military siege mentality, apart from the confusion that IPOB has created. If you see the way we mobilize security agencies, 33,000 policemen, 18 police commissioner, 2 DIGs, plus the military, plus you see to well, that will not stop those that want to commit nefarious activities of voters intimidation, of vote buying, of ballot box snatching to still not commit it. You will not be able to reconcile the outcome, the actual election taking place, and the security agencies that were deployed to address this issue. I think we need to address all of these elements. And those that are the characters, the non-state actors in IPOP, should understand that they are not helping the citizens of Anambra State. They are not helping the citizens of the Southeast when they come up with sit-at-home order, which stifle the economic well-being of the people. You see, time is a convertible resource that God has given to everybody, whether you are poor, you are rich. And it's how you deploy that time that determines how successful, that determines your well-being. Let me just use that. So if you order sit at home for people that are engaged in commercial activity, you have destroyed their life. You have taken a means of their livelihood. And whoever is advising IPOP needs to advise them that whatever strategy they are adopting to promote their agitation are destructive strategy that are not only destroying the people, is destroying the community, is destroying the Southeast, and is also destroying the perception that the generality of Nigeria